Hey guys, welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Fast Keto, brought to you by Ketogenic Girl. And I am so pumped to be here with you guys today. I've been wanting to launch this podcast for a while now, and I want to talk about super hot, relevant topics about keto so that we can all come to understand certain concepts better. And one of the biggest ones is exercise. I get so many messages asking about exercise and keto and about my program, and I usually emphasize that people really focus on the food. But today I want to talk about exercise, and we have a very special guest joining us today. His name is Bill Karalash. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, I'm so happy and excited to be here.
I just can't call you Bill. I have to call you Billy because that's just how I know you. So it's going to be Billy, but for everyone else, it's Bill.
Actually, it doesn't matter as long as it's not Willie. It's the only one I don't like at all. Just not Willie. William, Bill, Will, Billy, just...
Okay,
all those are fine.
Not,
it's not
Willie. Got that. Okay, but Billy is fine. Yeah. I'm going to go with Billy because that's what I'm used to. Now, Billy is the CEO and founder of Maverick Strength and Fitness. Believes in empowering people to achieve their goals through a combination of lifestyle, nutrition, and fitness. So all three. And Billy's a certified personal trainer and certified sport nutrition specialist. So he's got a wealth of information on exercise, and he knows keto. He knows Keto Girl. He's known me for a while, and he's also studied keto on his own and understands how it works. And so we're going to talk about the best kinds of exercise to do on keto. Can you benefit your hormones doing exercise on keto? We're going to talk about a few different really important topics. So just to start off with, I mentioned, I really emphasize that people, when they first do keto, they focus on the foods and not get too caught up in all the different kinds of exercise that they can do. It's really important, in my opinion, to focus on making those big changes in the kitchen. But a lot of people love to exercise. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all know it keeps you healthy. A lot of us, like myself, I used to get addicted to those endorphin highs. But a lot of people like to exercise, and they don't want to have to sacrifice doing exercise for keto. So, well, in your opinion, can you do exercise on keto?
Yes. Well, absolutely you can. I think you touched on something really important there. And something that we're going to talk about throughout this podcast is going to be context, and putting context to exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle so you understand the hierarchy. And I think you did an awesome job. Well, first of all, thanks so much for the nice intro. That was great. When you talk early on about nutrition and making sure that part is taken care of first, and making sure that that's integrated in your lifestyle, especially on a ketogenic diet, that is so important, because otherwise you're learning a whole nother aspect, and it can be really overwhelming. For a lot of people, going on a ketogenic diet is a huge lifestyle change.
Absolutely. And
one not to be taken lightly. So nail down the nutrition aspect of it first, and add the fitness and exercise aspect later. And it's really important to do it in that order, because you can mess up the nutritional part of and getting into ketosis if you're exercise. And of course, this is different for everybody, mm-hmm. because we're all at a different starting point.
Yes.
But for a lot of people early on, because of they're probably insulin resistant, and that's how they found this diet to begin with, and seen other people are having huge success with hormone regulation, you can not go into ketosis from doing exercise too early until you're keto adapted. So I just wanted to bring that up and make sure that...
It's so important, though.
Yeah,
that's so important that people know that, because mm-hmm. that's what I try to warn people a lot about, is that you could kick yourself out of ketosis, or you can work against yourself if you're trying to do too much at one time. And people sometimes get the impression that I'm like anti-exercise,
not at all.
Which couldn't be further from the truth. I love exercise. I love good feeling movement, but there's so much going on when you first go on keto. You need to gradually down-regulate your carbs. You want to avoid hypoglycemia. You don't want to just overnight go into keto. You have to do it gradually, go low carb. You have to pace yourself. It's a long-term lifestyle change. It's not some kind of overnight thing where, we all want results yesterday, but still, like, you have to pace yourself. And you can do certain forms of exercise while doing keto. You don't have to give up your routine. But let's talk about the best kinds of exercise that are going to minimize the impact of cortisol and stress hormones on your body, but give you the biggest benefit, like for someone who's, in a state of nutritional ketosis or trying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
If you were, say, to recommend to me, what should I do on a weekly basis if I want to spend the least amount of time possible in the gym and get the most results for most bang for my buck?
So you talked about cortisol before and how the downward spiral can happen from being insulin resistant or high cortisol. Like, cortisol is not a bad thing, but it can be associated with a bad thing if your cortisol levels are too high all the time. It's a natural reaction for your body. It's your stress hormone. But when those stay too high all the time, you become insulin resistant and your body stores fat.
Right.
Which is not what you want, and why ketosis is so valued, because it brings you back to an insulin sensitive state, and it helps you burn fat. It burns fat as fuel, which is awesome. So to go back a bit with cardio, doing cardio for long periods of time, and it can be a really downward spiral. And I think we'll get into it a bit later with it being catabolic. So it eats your muscle. And it's not only eating fat, but it's eating muscle. Where if you're doing heavy resistance training, you're growing your muscle. Versus, so it's more in an anabolic state than it is in a catabolic state.
Which is so interesting, I find. And I love kind of challenging some of the notions, that we've been brought up with and conditioned with. I mean, one of the coolest things about keto is doing keto was doing the exact opposite of everything I had ever done. Yeah. So challenging these notions that we've had, one of them is cardio is the best way to burn fat. So, there I was every day running an hour, sometimes an hour and a half a day to burn fat. And it was not working. My body was literally clinging on to fat more than ever.
Totally. So think about it this way. It is if you're just first starting, say for an hour or a day or a week. But what happens is let's say you do cardio for an hour, you're only really using fuel for that hour, but there's still 24 hours left in the day.
Right.
So your body's still operating. And that's where resistance training comes in, and adding lean muscle, is that your body's able to expend more fat because it needs more, because you have more mass to support. So the energy that you need more energy to support that lean mass.
Right. So that's when it comes to optimizing your body composition. So you have more fat-free mass, more lean mass. So your metabolism goes up, you're burning more calories throughout the day. You're in prana when it comes to be able to eat more delicious keto foods, especially. The other things when it comes to cardio, we talked a little bit about the stress hormone. So when you're doing cardio, I've heard over 20 minutes. If you keep it under 20 minutes, you can get away with, say, doing high intensity intervals on the treadmill, or you can do, if you like, you're used to that, getting those endorphin highs, and you like doing that kind of cardio. So you can do, say, incline walking on a treadmill up to 20 minutes, and maybe you won't have as much cortisol. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I think it's really individualized depending on the person, what their reference point is for starting exercise, where they're at in their nutrition, if they're keto adapted. If they're keto adapted and they have been for a long time and they've been exercising for a while, that person can probably do a lot more cardio than another person. Okay. Where if a person is starting early, they'll bounce out probably a lot faster. So it could even be less than 20.
Interesting.
There's not really a prescription that would say, here's the exact amount of time. Some of it's experimental.
A lot of this.
But even just going like cardiovascular exercise or just a steady state can be just as much as going for a walk with a friend, or, taking 20 minutes and going over to your neighbor's house and having a visit.
that can be used instead of, say, walking on a treadmill stationary for 20 minutes.
Right. Like I've started wearing my Fitbit again in the past several months because for me, as long as I get 10,000 steps in, I feel like that's a good amount of mobility, of movement, good feeling movement throughout the day, which is what I always emphasize is exercise is fantastic. I'm not in any way, shape, or form against exercise. I think it's one of the best things you can do for your overall health, but I really believe in good feeling movement and not punishing workouts where, and this is really interesting. I read a study in Time magazine about 10 years ago, and it said, okay, so everyone is exercising more than ever, and yet obesity rates are higher than ever.
Yeah.
So what's going on there? And they said that one of the most interesting things they found, I talk about this a bit in my book, Keto Essentials, is that when people went to the gym and did a workout and more often than not did cardio, that they then would go reward themselves with a muffin or a smoothie that was, say, 400 calories, and they maybe had burnt 350 in the gym. So they were actually getting bigger from doing that workout when they could just have skipped the workout and skip the muffin, and they would have been better off.
Exactly.
So that's one of the reasons also, for example, on my program, I tell people not to think about exercise because when you're changing your diet, you're making these kinds of changes, and say you're giving up carbs, you're changing your lifestyle, you need willpower to make those changes. Mm-hmm. And we all know we're only given a certain amount of willpower each day. And if you use all that willpower to make yourself put your gym clothes on, tie your runners, go to the gym, work out, resist the muffin, you're making it harder on yourself than if you were to just maybe not do that and use your willpower instead to just focus on the food. So that's really why I always emphasize the food. But I think exercise can really, really complement keto. You really need to just choose the right kinds of exercise. So I want to talk a little bit about hormones and what happens in the body when you exercise in terms of hormones, because a lot of the people that are on my program or are drawn or come to keto, they do it because of hormones. Like they want to heal their hormones. Can you tell us if exercise can benefit that at all?
It can. Back to that article, it's so true. And it reminds me of times throughout like my journey in fitness and nutrition where I've tried to like outrun a bad diet. Like it's just about impossible.
Right.
So when you nail down your nutrition, the rest of it comes so much easier. And it really does. But to speak to your next question about hormones and can it benefit that and can it help heal? Absolutely. So at face value, if you looked at exercise and you didn't know what a person was doing and you've seen these spikes, you'd be like, why is this person's...
Sorry, which spikes?
You'd see spikes in cortisol and insulin at first, and your body is inflamed because you're putting it through work.
And we want to avoid inflammation at all costs. Usually.
Exactly. But at face value, it seems silly in a way. But on the other side of that, on the healing side, because you're stretching, you're taking out of your body's normal state, and the word for that's homeostasis,
right? And
you're stretching it to improve and start, I guess, working in a more efficient way. But in order to do that, you need to stretch it. So stretching it can be through resistance training. So you'll see your cortisol and insulin levels spike, but on the other side of that, they'll actually go down because you're using fuel to fuel that workout, which in keto, or if you're on your way to getting into ketosis and you're already doing resistance training, you'll take your blood sugar, I guess it's not your blood sugar, it's your glycogen levels, and they will go down, which then increases. On the other side of that, if you're already in ketosis and you're keto adapted, you'll have more ketones, your growth hormone levels will increase, your IGF levels will increase, and your testosterone levels will increase, which are all like positive things because it's going to building muscle.
Right. And that makes sense because we know we want to avoid chronic inflammation, but a little bit of inflammation is great. I mean, if you cut yourself or you injure yourself, your body is so amazing and it creates inflammation in order to heal. It's just when that inflammation doesn't go down after and it becomes chronic that we really get disease and we get a lot of the symptoms.
And that's with like hypothyroid and things like that, and chronic inflammation that ketosis does such a good job, and why you've stressed and I'm stressing right now, get that nutrition in order first. And you'll find that through nutrition, you can regulate your hormones better and then add in the exercise. If you do it the other way around, it could really mess things up even more, actually.
So then let's talk about the wrong kinds of exercise making you catabolic. So can you explain to people what becoming catabolic is?
To keep it really simple, being catabolic means like your body in a way is kind of eating itself. It's the simplest way I can put it. So exercises that do that. Now, does it necessarily mean it's always eating itself? But how people think of that would be cardiovascular, and it's that downward spiral, because you probably see this a lot where people have been on crash diets that are really low in nutrients, and then they're doing all of this cardio, like an hour or two, but that's catabolic. But you're putting your body in a stressful state, and well, say the metabolic adaptation. Well, your body's metabolically adapting to what the input is at that certain point in time. And it's saying, well, I need to store fat right now because I don't know if I'm going to get it again, and I need to live.
Right.
Because there's so much extra stress. And that's why the cortisol levels are high. That's why your insulin, I guess you become insulin resistant, is due to catabolic, like exercising combined with poor nutrition.
Right. So the best forms and types of exercise would be, in your opinion, the resistance training.
Yeah. So and we call that anabolic, and anabolic just means growth.
Right. Okay.
But I want to state that anabolic with the right nutrition, like all of this is fundamentally based on lifestyle nutrition. And then the next part is adding in the exercise. So when you're doing the heavy resistance training, after you have your nutrition in order, you're telling your muscles, hey, it's time to grow. And when it's time to grow and you gain that lean muscle mass, then the rest of your body, it sends off the signal, well, hey, I need to burn more fat. And that's what growth hormone does. It's a contributing factor to fat burning. Same with testosterone. Same with
IGF-1.
Yeah,
and
IGF-1.
That's what happens, in fasting. That's one of the things I love the most about keto is it's really a fasting mimicking diet, and you get all that growth hormone, IGF-1 release. You get autophagy. Your body, goes through and clears out old cells, and it's a cleansing, process. So it's really cool to know that exercise can also enhance that. So for myself, since I've started going back in the gym for, doing the lifting, and I find it really good feeling movement. Like I don't find it punishing at all. I really enjoy it. Especially when you go back and, you see that you can lift a little bit more than you could, a couple weeks ago. Yeah. It's really empowering, and feeling strong also feels really good.
Best exercise, it's the one that you're going to stick to.
That is pretty key.
So let's start with adherence if we're going to put things into context.
Yeah.
And then I guess the next best exercise from there would be, the next best form of exercising is resistance training.
Right. And then that's what I always tell people is do exercise that you love. If it's a punishing workout for you at the gym, you might do it for a couple months and then you don't enjoy it, so you're not going to keep at it. But if you love yoga, if you love walking, hiking, biking, playing tennis, whatever it is that's your jam, then that's just going to make the adherence part come in. And that's what we repeatedly do. You need that consistency.
I think something to add to the conversation would be to make sure that your map matches your goals. Because if you had a map and you're trying to get to LA, but you only had a map to go to New York, they don't really match, so it'd kind of be weird, right? Like you'd end up in the wrong place.
By map, you mean your destination, like your goals?
Your goals. So what I think me and you both see so often with our clients is that they'll have a perception of what they think they should be doing. Or I know, at least from my own personal experience and yours, because we talk so much, like our map didn't match our goals. And that can be the same thing with exercise. If you're trying to down-regulate your insulin, so you become insulin sensitive, and you're trying to down-regulate your cortisol levels, so you can be insulin sensitive to get your hormone balance back. well, then probably going for a 2-hour run doesn't match that goal.
Right. And that's what I used to do, is that like hour and a half, 2-hour run daily. Because I was taught that if you want to burn fat, you got to run it off. But
so bringing that map back to say like, okay, well, if we want to go to LA, let's get the map to LA. That's the same thing. So making sure that your exercise matches your goals, that matches your nutrition.
Right.
And then you can build on it from there. So resistance training combined with a ketogenic diet is one of the best ways to obtain like fat loss.
It's one of the most effective things that people can do, and
Yes.
and that's why one of the reasons it's been spreading like wildfire is it's just such a powerful combination. And I was in the gym all the time. I used to be, and I was also eating what I thought was, the highest, most healthy diet that I could possibly eat. And that was my high carb, no fat diet, and running every day, doing tons and tons of treadmill time and doing stuff that I hated, because I thought this is the only way to lose fat. And I also thought eating high carb and avoiding every single gram of fat would help me burn fat. And it wasn't until I found keto, started eating fat, and started combining intermittent fasting that I found the solution for me. Now, some people also combine that with exercise. I didn't. I took a break from exercise completely. I did a little bit of good feeling yoga, but otherwise I just did walking. No scheduled routines. I wanted to break that cycle and get away from it. So I just focused on food, what to eat, when to eat it, and when not to eat it. So intermittent fasting. But you're saying if you combine that as well with exercise, you're going to get like the next level.
Yeah, it's even more optimal. So like what you're talking about, and I'm glad you put it in that context, because you got the nutritional part and you became keto adapted, and that was in order before you added the exercise. Because if you, knowing your situation and how you found ketosis, and then once you got into it and then keto adapted, if you had added exercise too early, your stress levels might have stayed the same, and you might never have even gone into ketosis, and then it would be another thing that you'd be searching for answers for.
Right.
So I really want to stress the context of that is making sure that you're keto adapted before you go outside of what your norm is for exercise.
And what about someone who's been lifting for a while? It's part of their weekly routine, and they don't want to stop it, or pause it. They want to just keep doing what they're doing.
I think, well, your body's going to tell you. And that's one of the great things about the ketogenic diet is when you're testing, you'll if it's too much, you'll knock yourself out of ketosis.
And you will see how you feel. If you
feel
like crap,
you're not
going to want to.
Exactly. So I guess that's one of, like we just discussed, 2 ways where you'll know. If you follow one of those 2, then you're on the right track.
So I've been incorporating lifting now that I feel like I've lost the weight that I want to, and I want to enhance my body composition and add more muscle, more fat-free mass, more lean mass, and I want toning and firming, which I've done quite a bit with just doing keto diet alone. But knowing that it's next level results when you combine that with exercise, I'm getting into it. So if someone wants to just tone and build muscle mass, what are some of the best exercises to do for that?
So toning is actually losing fat. Everybody's toned. You just need to shed that fat in order to look toned. But if you want to also gain muscle, the best thing to do is resistance training. But what that does is it adds more lean muscle mass and fat-free mass, which then it's like stoking a fire or revving the engine for your metabolism, which then helps burn more fat.
Right. I always like how you said if you're doing cardio, you're just burning it for the time that you're working out.
Yeah.
If you're building muscle, you're burning the whole other 23 hours of the day.
Yes. If you were to lift an hour a day, then the other 23 hours you're building muscle, and especially in that recovery, because what your muscle's doing is it's actually breaking down during the workout. That's why your cortisol levels increase, because of the stress that's involved in that. And then after the workout, when those levels go down, your muscles are repairing. And when they repair, they're building and getting bigger. as they get bigger, they need more fuel in order for you to just sustain and move and exist. And that's a really good thing because you're burning more energy. And the energy that you're using for that is fat.
Right. That stored fat that we all love, that our bodies so lovingly put away for us for those times when we would be without food. But in our Western modern world, we rarely go without access to food, so we don't really need to be storing it all the time. So burning it and knowing how to burn it and communicating to the body to burn it is awesome. I want to talk about specific exercises that you would recommend for someone who doesn't have a ton of time. I want to talk about specific exercises that you would recommend for someone who doesn't have a ton of time. I want to talk about specific exercises that you would recommend for someone who doesn't have a ton of time. I want to talk about specific exercises that you would recommend for someone who doesn't have a ton of time. I want to talk at the gym or to spare for the gym, but just wants to get the most bang for their buck. Say they have 30 minutes a day, 3 to 4 times a week.
So the exercises that you're going to want to do are compound exercises. Again, I want to add context to this. It's what you're going to stick to.
Right.
So, and another really important factor is avoiding injury. So there's some really complex compound exercises and there's some really natural ones. And in my opinion, the best compound exercises to do it doesn't matter whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or advanced lifter, would be squats, deadlifts, bench press, shoulder press or military press, and pull-ups.
And a lot of these things you can do without actually having to go to a gym, right?
Yeah, your body is a weight. So you can use your body as a weight for the majority of these. I've traveled for 9 months out of an entire year, and sometimes it's really hard when you're traveling or just when you're really busy to find a gym. And I've found traveling, I travel with resistance bands because they're really small and easy to throw in a suitcase and you can take them anywhere.
Those are awesome.
Yeah.
And they're so cheap. You can get them like online, Amazon.
I think mine, I got 5 for $30.
Yeah.
Like it's through Amazon. It was awesome. And having that body weight exercise, just knowing that I can do the majority of that work with that, it's not optimal like weights would be in a gym, but it's better than nothing.
Well, not everyone loves going to the gym, right?
No.
Like, I mean, I don't find it to be the most awesome place.
It can be intimidating.
It can be really intimidating. There's mirrors everywhere. If you're not feeling body confident, it's just kind of a house of horrors of your own creation. But like Jim Gaffigan likes to say about going to the gym, all he sees is people who are done. Like, you need to go home. You're done. You really don't need to be here. I need to be here. But sometimes a gym can be fun, and if you find a nice one or you have one locally that you like, but I like to just work out at home, and it's also very time saving to just do that at home. Then you can do quite a bit,
Yeah, like you can start with one push-up at home. Like you don't have to create these rules for yourself that don't even really exist. Like, give yourself an opportunity to get those small wins and build yourself up. Like, it's okay to start with one push-up. We all started with one.
Right.
Like, I didn't do a push-up until I did my first one, right? Mm. Same with you. Same thing with squats. Like, I didn't do a squat until I did my first squat. Actually, people naturally squat all the time. Like, watch a kid trying to walk.
Yeah.
Like, they are phenomenal at squatting. They have perfect form almost every time. We unlearn how to do squats.
That's so interesting. And kids are so good at playing and moving, and what we really want, ideally with keto, is to have good feeling movement that generates some stress.
Yeah.
Because there's this really fascinating concept of hormesis where a little bit of poison is good for you, just like with exercise. A little bit of stress stresses the muscle, pushes it to grow. But with keto, you really want to keep your stress levels low, and you want to keep inflammation low. So we also know inflammation's great. If you injure yourself or you cut yourself, your body goes to work. But it's when that inflammation becomes chronic, it's when stress becomes chronic, that you may get kicked out of ketosis, you may not keto adapt. So that's why it's so important to emphasize the right kinds of exercise. So instead of doing cardio, for example, someone could do high intensity interval training, perhaps.
High intensity interval training, and cardio is not necessarily bad either. It's bad at the
evil.
wrong.
It's just pure evil, Billy.
It's just not at the right time for what your listeners are looking for.
I hate it until I love it when those endorphins kick in, and then I was an addict, to those, like, getting those good feeling endorphins. It does help. I find sometimes just, like, give me some mental health, like, to do cardiovascular activity. But I have read that keeping it under 20 minutes is ideal for managing the amount of cortisol that your body releases so that you don't get too much coming out, and then your blood sugar is just going to be too elevated. You're not going to get that healing and have that, restored insulin sensitivity.
So let's even take that back. If we're talking about best use of time, making sure you're keto adapted first for at least 1 to 2 weeks, at least, before you start exercise.
That's a great rule of thumb.
And add that in. So
just pause, take it easy.
I want people to to get a lot of value out of this and to really get takeaways. So that takeaway of making sure that nutrition's in order, I can't stress that enough.
Building block.
Yeah, it's such a building block because of where your reference point is for where you're starting. So that reference point is probably insulin resistant, and they need to get the hormones in order and making sure that they've keto adapted so they don't get bumped out of ketosis by any type of exercise or normal movement, right? Like, get adapted first. Once that's in order, and we're talking minimum effective dose, or like I only have a half an hour, resistance train.
Nice.
You're gonna have to do your day stuff anyway. Like, most people work, most people like have friends and family. Like, you're gonna be moving around. That's a form of steady state cardio.
Interesting.
It is a form because you are moving. Unless you're just laying on the couch 24 hours a day. Well, then there's a different conversation we should probably have.
Right.
So after the resistance training, then add in some cardiovascular activity.
If you want to.
If you want to. But it depends. Again, I want to go back to that matching goals. Depends what your goals are. Like,
Yes.
some people like to go on hikes. Some people like to...
Yes.
Like, I don't want to demonize any of that stuff.
No.
I just want to make sure it's in the right order so people can see the results that they want, not only short term but long term, because this is like you're living. This is a long term game.
Absolutely. And I think just going back to building strength, do you think you could walk us through those different phases? I think you mentioned compound exercises would be ideal.
Yeah, so there's compound exercises, and we're going to provide, or I guess you're going to provide.
We're going to be creating Maverick Strength and Fitness Ketogenic Girl program. It's in the works right now. We're going to be releasing it to give you some guidance on the best kinds of exercise to do with keto. But let's just assume for now that most people's goals, we're talking about the map, most people's goals are toning, which you said is mostly fat loss, but firming, building lean muscle mass, and enhancing your body composition. Like that, I've read that the average body fat percentage for women in North America, according to a study done in England, was 40%. I've read different studies saying it's lower, but it is pretty common for people to have higher body fat percentage than they'd like to have. And one of the ways you can enhance that is by building more of that lean mass. So
exercise aside, because I touched on the 5 big ones, and then the other exercises are what we'll call them accessory exercises.
Okay.
And we don't need to go into detail on those, but what I should go into detail on is the 3 different kinds of, I guess, muscle building or strength. So there's building strength, and they're all different skills. And then there's building muscle, which is called hypertrophy. And then there's muscle endurance, which is what people would think of as being able to do lots of reps. So the first one is being able to lift the absolute most you can lift once.
Right.
And there's a phase within resistance training that you can do that, and they all complement each other. None of them are mutually exclusive, but they should all be used and work together, and that'll be a part of the workouts that we're creating. So to give people a quick sneak peek of what that is or what that might sound like if they're used to working out. Strength, what you've heard is usually like 2 to 5 reps. That would be strength, or 1 to 5. Anything 8 to 12 is usually considered hypertrophy, and 12 plus is considered muscle endurance.
Okay, and you're combining those 3 things. So out of, say, a standard week, if you're working out 4 times a week, that looks like...
You're going to be doing all of them. Yeah, there's...
Is that why it's called compounding?
No, the exercises are compound. That's called periodization, and that's a whole different topic, and something that would be really diving in super deep and probably too deep.
Okay.
For the first podcast.
Right. Well, I really want to talk about some of the most pertinent topics on keto and exercise, and one of those is protein. Mm-hmm. This is huge. People are constantly wondering, should they be supplementing with protein on keto? It's a moderated protein diet. So can you moderate protein but still build muscle in the gym with this kind of workout?
Yes. Well, that's what all the research and study points to. It's saying yes right now. And it is, like you said, a moderate amount of protein. So what the research is showing is that it's between 1.3 grams to 1.8 grams per kilogram of lean mass or fat-free mass is the amount of protein you're going to want to take in. But that's also the good part about the ketogenic diet, is your body's going to tell you.
Right.
So you'll,
test
by testing. So use those numbers as a guide. Don't use them as the be-all, end-all, because if those numbers aren't right, they're not right for you. It doesn't mean they're not right for somebody else, but you need to find the number that's right for you so you can stay keto adapted while exercising.
Right, and I've read and heard from some fitness experts, other fitness experts than yourself as well, that about 70, anywhere in the 60 to 80 grams, for example, for women, protein usually is enough to be able to build muscle. And that fits right in typically with most people on a keto diet that is moderated in protein. Everyone's different. Yeah. We have, bio-individuality. Everyone's different. So
genetics.
That's how I found out actually what my fat-free mass was just through testing blood sugar and ketones. I didn't realize, like, through your formula, I could have just been kind of doing this estimate as well to figure it out. But it's so easy with testing your blood sugar because you can see if you are a glucose burner predominantly or fat burner predominantly. You can see from your fasting blood glucose and what that's doing. I've been having a lot of fun doing some interesting tests with my lifting, now incorporating that because I've been back on my program, the 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge, since the beginning of January. And I'm now testing with doing heavy weights about 4 times a week, and I'm loving it. I'm not doing any cardio yet, just a lot of like yoga and good feeling movement to get one of my priorities is getting cortisol down and getting stress down. So I want for maximizing hormonal healing. So can exercise benefit our hormones and hormonal healing, accelerate that? Again,
as long as we're doing the things in the right order, yes. So what happens during exercise, if you looked at it from face value, is your body's really stressed and inflamed actually. But it's on the other side that all of the good stuff happens, you could say. So the increase in growth hormone, which is a hormone shown to help burn fat, your IGF, testosterone, plus you'll have your ketones will increase, but that's after. So your body has to go through that stress in order to come out. So I guess a way to think about it is it's a way to get a little bit uncomfortable, but then on the other side of that, there's a lot of comfort,
right?
Which is awesome.
It is, yeah.
And then the next time you just build on it, and you just keep building a bit more and more and more, and that's how you gain muscle. And we mentioned before, but I'll say it again, with the growth hormone and the IGF and your testosterone going to work for you after in the increase in ketones, in the recovery phase, that's the recovery part. That's where the actual muscle growth happens.
Interesting.
And that's why there's the inflammation and stress and cortisol levels within resistance training, is because you're actually tearing the muscle a bit. You're forcing it to adapt.
Right.
And you're forcing your body to adapt. And our bodies are amazing at adapting when you understand and start to pull the right levers for what you want to accomplish with your goals when things match, it's pretty phenomenal the things that it can do.
It's super exciting.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've been having fun with is seeing, you know, right after a workout, usually my blood glucose goes up and ketones go down. But then a few hours after that, they get a really nice boost, which is really cool to see, and especially helpful for people who struggle to get into ketosis. I have been keto adapted for a long time. I rarely go out of ketosis. I don't do carb ups or cheat days or things like that. The biggest thing for me is just when I'm traveling and eating different foods. Like, I'll continue to test, but for people who are struggling to get 0.5 or into nutritional ketosis, maybe adding in this kind of regimen could help them, you know, boost their ketones.
It's possible, yes. Yeah. Making sure that you've done it for a while and get keto adapted if you can first. Yeah.
So I like to work out fasted. I always make sure that I stay really, really hydrated, and I supplement with sodium and water, and I make sure to replenish electrolytes which are lost in the workout. I like to do fasted workouts. I find like I get
Me too.
more power. I feel more powerful when I'm there fasted. I feel more like woke. I feel more energetic. But I love...
You feel more woke?
I feel more woke, but...
We're really throwing in some slang. I love it.
I gotta chance it up. I gotta keep...
I didn't even have to look that up. It's awesome. I knew it. Feel woke too.
Awesome. Get your latest slang here on Fast Keto. But what are the best things that you can do post-exercise or pre-exercise? If you don't like to do fasted workouts, you know, people ask me, should you take branched chain amino acids? Should you take MCT powder or oil? Should you take, you know, I had an avocado right before this interview and I feel fantastic. But what are some of the things that you can do like that maybe before a workout if you don't want to do a fasted workout? Like, would you fuel up with fat?
Protein.
Okay.
Protein's good to have before, or fat. Again, this is really individualized. Like,
it is.
You're a person who likes to work out fasted. I do too. Most people don't. That's not the norm.
Yeah, there's almost a psychological thing to it too, I think.
I've always been like that. That's been natural.
Okay.
Playing sports and stuff growing up, I'd have to eat 4 hours before I grew up playing baseball, hockey, just about every sport, but those were the main two. And if I ate anything close, like I would say 3 hours before a game, I'd feel sluggish. I had to keep it 3 to 4 hours out.
Interesting. Or we're taught that you have to carb up, fuel up, you know, carb load, all these things, right?
On a ketogenic diet, I would recommend probably taking some sodium in before, during and after a workout.
Absolutely.
Branched chain amino acids aren't necessary, but you can, if you want to supplement, experiment with it for yourself.
Try it, yeah.
One of the good things about ketosis that people are finding is that it's the main branch chain involved in building muscles called leucine.
Yes.
And it's not spared, which means it stays in your system. Now, that's pretty rare. That doesn't happen on the glycogen side.
Interesting. So do you do any fasting yourself? Or
Yes.
it's just like the morning? You do some intermittent fasting?
Not necessarily intentionally. I just feel better.
But you're not necessarily in keto.
No.
In ketosis, yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I don't want to optimize like how I feel.
Right.
I guess I've always liked working out fasted. It started
That's
when I started working out in the morning because I prefer working out early in the morning than late at night. Found that it's too easy to skip after a hard day's work.
Yes.
So I was trying to how am I going to get to the gym? It started with like 5 minutes. Like my commitment was 5 minutes to the gym, which might sound absurd because it takes longer to get there, even if you're walking sometimes, and get back. But hey, I just made a little commitment to myself.
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to go for 5 minutes today, tomorrow, the next day.
Well, that's great that you do that.
It grows over time.
There's so many incredible benefits to intermittent fasting, especially autophagy, and that's one of the things I love the most about keto is how it's fasting mimicking diet. And you know, some people do like to work out fasted, some people don't, but you can take some supplements like you're saying if you want to, if it's something that, you know, you feel better. The only thing is I find it really challenging to find supplements, like especially branched chain amino acids that don't have sweeteners added in them.
Yeah,
I haven't really found any clean ones. Even like electrolyte supplements, the only ones I found are in like capsule form. They always even have like stevia or something. And if you're wanting to avoid having any kind of blood sugar spikes, which can also happen from natural sweeteners, and I've been off sweeteners now for about 8 months, so I would just avoid anything like that if the supplement has like added sweeteners or other ingredients in there.
Again, I just want to reiterate, like, find what works for you.
Yes.
Like, to your listeners, find out what works for you. Like, what I do isn't best practice. One way to do it, you got to find what works for you.
You got to try yourself. Have a nice big protein shake or protein-based breakfast with some healthy fats on there with eggs and bacon and avocado, and then go work out and try it with something smaller. Try around, play with different things, and you'll see how you feel the best when you're at the gym.
Mm-hmm. And unless you're having trouble getting your nutrition through food, I strongly recommend getting your nutrition through food. I want to state that first. Like,
absolutely, whole foods.
Yeah, there's a lot. Supplements are great and people are great at selling them, but they're not always necessary.
Yeah, I don't take a ton either. I take some magnesium. I supplement with sodium. I take probiotic and vitamin C, but other than that, I like to get all my potassium, all my vitamins, mostly from whole food sources. I mean, there's more potassium in an avocado than there are in bananas and potatoes. Coconuts are another great source of those. There's just so many nutrients that we get from high quality foods, emphasizing high quality foods. And that goes back to the protein question. If you're getting high quality proteins in, you're moderating protein, but you're getting the highest quality biological value proteins, like lots of eggs and those kinds of sources, you're not going to need to supplement.
Like a good cut of beef, like a ribeye, it's more expensive. But if you want to go less expensive, you can get lean ground beef, like, because it has, or just ground beef. It has like high fat and good fat
and
content.
all those amino acids that you don't need to be taking like in a powder or anything like that.
I think it's I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I'm pretty confident that a 6-ounce chicken breast has 6 grams of branched chain amino acids in it. It just goes to show that you don't necessarily need to supplement it. It might already be in your system and you're just adding for no reason.
Now, do you do any kind of, one of the big topics with building muscle is refeeds and carbing up, carb loading and that kind of thing. What's your opinion on that?
I think it's for the individual. For your audience, I wouldn't recommend it because you want to make sure that you're getting into ketosis and you're keto adapted first. So I don't know if that answers the whole question. There's ways to do it. And if you are going to do it, I would recommend to do it slowly, coming out of ketosis, and add a small amount of carbohydrates at a time. Otherwise, you're going to balloon up. Right. Because instantly your body will flick the switch back to burning glucose.
Yes.
And your glycogen stores will fill, but if you're still taking it, if you haven't been adapted, next thing you know, you've gained 6 pounds, and then it's easy to add on top of that.
Right.
So your body's really good at adapting, but once you've keto adapted and you throw something at it again, like, remember that it could be like, I've used this analogy a lot before, filling up a car full of gas and then it's full already, and then you just keep filling it up. Well, the gas is going to go everywhere, but that's where fat gain happens.
Right. And I mean, I don't personally do carb ups, but I do know that some people use them. I know Leanne Vogel's talked a lot about carb ups and how important they can be for some people with their hormone regulation, with healing hormones, with even breaking a stall sometimes. Can be helpful for that. I've never used them myself, so that's why I don't really talk about them that much, and I don't really like the idea personally myself of cycling in and out of ketosis and being in a fat-fueled state, glucose burning state, fat-fueled state, glucose burning state. That doesn't, to me, appeal to me, that to be switching things up for the body all the time. It's kind of like pick a lane. You know, for me, keto is a long-term lifestyle where carbs play a really small role, but sometimes when I'm in maintenance, I do up them a little bit, up protein a little bit, and that's just for me. That's what works for me. But I do think that there is some validity in it, and I know that there are also people who use like refeeds and things when they're in bodybuilding. So again, like you said, it all depends on what your goals are.
Yeah, it really depends on what your goals are. From what I've found with carbing up, it's once you've been in ketosis for a long time, you're insulin sensitive, your hormones are back to balance.
Done a lot of healing.
Yeah, that's more of the norm.
Right, but if someone's really insulin resistant and then they're like spiking their sugar all the time, or spiking with carbs, that might not help them get to their goals with insulin sensitivity as quickly.
Yeah, it'll stall that part. So you want to make sure that you've already been keto adapted. And this is just my opinion and recommendation. And then after, but if you are already really lean and you're looking for something different and you're in bodybuilding or fitness competitions, yes, then you can do a carb up. I'd recommend not doing it cycling once every 20 days or more. Otherwise, your body's too busy flicking switches.
Right. It's just confusing for everybody.
It is. Like nobody stands beside a light in a room and just turns it on and off and on and off. And you're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Your body would be asking you the same question. Is somebody standing there flicking a light when you're at the middle of the party? Like nobody really knows what's going on.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's so great that exercise can complement keto so well, and knowing that, you know, you can still moderate protein, you can still build muscle that way. You can do exercise without over-stimulating your cortisol and over-stressing the body, but you can also enhance your body composition by adding in a healthy exercise routine. And it's probably the fastest way to enhance your body composition is like combining keto and exercise, because you're going to be, you know, shredding fat, being a fat burner, and you're also going to be building muscle and therefore enhancing your overall body composition really effectively, really quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's definitely a great way.
I want to talk a little bit about energy. Do you think that having an exercise routine can help with your energy?
Yes. I don't know if anybody else has heard the saying, motion equals emotion, and like just getting
emotion
out there.
creates motion.
Yeah. Well, like the word emotion comes from motion. So like get out there and do stuff.
Right. It is, but
and it's stimulating your central nervous system. I guess that's more of the scientific term, or what you might be looking for.
Right.
There's an uptake in endorphins. Now, you talked about this earlier, is getting that endorphin feeling. Well, that happens after exercise and during, is feeling that a little bit of euphoria.
Yes.
From, I think it's norepinephrine. Those mirrors around you and body image, it's definitely a thing. And we've all been there before, where maybe we haven't liked what we've seen. And it's interesting the transformations that you can make and the confidence that can come out of it. Even like maybe to somebody else, they don't see the change, but you see those changes. Yeah,
there's some kind of quote I saw where like the beginning, and people don't really feel like they've made a change until someone else notices it, you know, and that does give you that boost, even if you're maybe not feeling it yourself so much.
Yeah, I see the memes with guys all the time. I've been to the gym for a week and it shows another picture of what the guy's perception of it is, and it's this bodybuilding big guy and stuff. But that's a part of like building confidence, but that's because you took an action, you followed through, you accomplished something. Just like
that's compounding.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's just like a positive mental state to be in. I'm sure you've heard just making your bed every day.
Yes.
Can give you a sense of accomplishment. Well, that's
I do it every day just because I heard on a podcast. I'm a podcast freak and listen to lots of them. It's just that little boost that makes you feel like you've taken, you know, some forward momentum on your day, and
it's something that takes
help you win
minutes.
The day. Yeah.
And every time you walk by it, because I made my bed today, I was like, oh yeah, and I didn't the day before. I was like, oh.
Score.
You know.
So do you work out every day then?
I don't. I do some form of like movement every day.
Right.
But like personally, I think my sweet spot's between 5 and 6 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes 4, but
I'm
for the majority of the year, it's 5 to 6.
I'm trying to do 3 to 4, and I know you said 4 is probably like closer to the minimum for me, because my goal is to build about 6 pounds of muscle in the next year. So 3 sometimes is all I can get to, but at least I know the 3-4 range. Like if I do 5, that's like super
it really
awesome.
depends on your goals and your experience in lifting. Like people who haven't lifted weights before or went to the gym, you have such an advantage over somebody who's been working out and for the course of 5 years, if they've done it properly. We'll put that caveat in there. But your first 5 years, you have such an opportunity to grow. And I'm so excited that we're going to be collaborating on this, because if I could go back in time, oh, wow, we're going to be saving people so much time with
That's
having
great.
to search for an optimal plan, or like that confusion and asking yourself, there's so many different workouts out there. Am I getting the right one? Am I getting the right one for me? And that doubt gets in there, you're getting the right one.
Right. And I mean, we know, like we were saying so many times today, that everyone is different, but at least, we can provide a program that is somewhat, applicable to people. 5 exercises with 5 or to 8 reps, or like just kind of a basic outline of what anyone can do, and then you can modify and add more or take away based on what you like to do, or how the workout feels and your goals, right? So it's kind of like not a one size fits all, but something that it's like a starting point or building block where people will be able to refer to.
It is, and what you'll find when you get into it is you can customize it to yourself. So we'll be giving percentages of 1 rep maxes, but if you don't know what that is, we'll be giving another alternative that it's called a rate of perceived exertion. So it just means like, do you feel like you could do 2 more reps? Good. So if we give you, say, do 8 to 10 and you get to 8 and you feel like you could do 2 more,
right?
Stop. That's called rate of perceived exertion.
Oh, interesting.
And we're going to
I thought you were going to say keep going.
No, don't. If you can only do 2 more. If you think you can do 4 more, then you go to 10 and then you stop. So that'll all be explained in the collaboration of the program.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it, and I know you've also been doing your own program for a while, which is Maverick Strength and Fitness, and if people want more from you, they can find that on your website?
Yeah, on my website, maverickstrengthandfitness.com. You can find me on Instagram at Maverick Strength and Fitness, on Facebook at Maverick Strength and Fitness, on YouTube, same place. But probably the best place to reach out is either on Facebook. Just send a message to our page. You'll get me. Or send an email. Go to the website, snoop around. There's lots of free stuff on there.
It looks awesome, and I'm really excited with all the last things you've added on there, and I'm sure people will get tons of great info from it too. So thanks so much for being here today, Billy. It was super fun to talk about all these things, and awesome. We both find them so interesting, so I hope you guys did too. And
I want to thank your community, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here, and I'm really excited to be able to
that's so nice
to add value. So I hope that there was lots of takeaways and that your community got a lot of value out of this, because that's why we do this. Absolutely.
You're so right. And yeah, I just really appreciate the time and you took to research everything and present here. And thank you guys all so much for joining us. And I'm sure we'll have you back on again in the future to talk more hot topics with exercise. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you had as much fun as I did chatting with Billy about all things keto and exercise. Join me next week for another episode of Fast Keto. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button on iTunes and leave me a review. I would absolutely love to read it. Until then, have a fantastic weekend and bye for now. few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions that may pose risks or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician if you have this condition or other. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian before beginning any kind of new diet or exercise regimen. Under no circumstances shall the host here, any guests or contributors to the podcast, any employees, associates, or affiliates of Ketogenic Girl be responsible for damages arising from the use of this podcast. If you do not agree, do not listen to this podcast.